Spirit guides. What do I think? I may stand out from a number of other psychics who are active in the paranormal community in the fact that I don't really buy into the notion of spirit guides, not as it's widely presented. I do not necessarily believe that every single person out there has a spirit guide. Do I think that people who are sensitive and able to communicate with beings on that side, do I think that they have the potential for building a relationship with a beneficial, intelligent spirit? I think that that is possible, but I am skeptical of the notion that every single person is assigned a study buddy on the other side. Now, part of this, I think, comes from my own attitude towards spirits. There are a number of spirits that I work with. I would imagine that from some people's perspective, these would be spirit guides. I have a really hard time thinking of them as spirit guides. They're friends. Some of them are family members. They are not any better or worse than me because they're dead. They're simply spirits, and they're walking around without a body, and they happen to have a more direct interaction with the spirit world than I do on a day-to-day basis because, well, I'm flesh and blood. I'm here, I'm still alive. But sometimes the notion of spirit guides, the way it gets presented, it sounds so starry-eyed, new agey, like there's some great, I don't know, managerial center in the sky where different dead people are assigned living people, and they're either your guardian angel or your personal guide or your conscience, your Jiminy Cricket, your something. And it just doesn't seem to work that way, at least not for me. In contrast, I do think that people who are sensitive, people who talk to spirits and for whom that's a comfortable, natural thing, I think it's only normal for people like that to develop relationships, friendships with the spirits they communicate with. People who don't perceive spirits as a part of their daily experience, spirits are intimidating, they're frightening, and it's really hard, I think, for people like that to conceive of spirits in anything other than a scary perspective, in anything other than like negative things, something that's invasive to your perception of the world, uninvited. But if you are like myself, if your perception of the spirit world is a natural and fundamental part of your daily existence, there's nothing frightening about the vast majority of spirits that you come into contact with. But I think to put them on a pedestal just because they're dead, just because they're not wearing bodies, that's a mistake. In my experience, the vast majority of spirits that were once human that are now kicking around on the other side, they're no better or worse than living people. They haven't gotten all the answers just because they died. Most of them are just, well, they've got the same problems that we do. Some of those problems are amplified because all they have is their own internal landscape. All they have are the emotions, the worries, the cares, the thoughts, the memories, the things that tie them, that anchor them to their previous life. Now, I will acknowledge that there seems to be a process for spirits, particularly for the human dead. There seems to be a point where they go somewhere else. And sometimes when they go that somewhere else, they come back and they're different. They're a little unburdened. They're not so hung up on the things, their unfinished business. They're not as weighed down or as fretting over the emotional content that they couldn't get over. They seem to be more at peace. Do they seem to then have the answers to life, the universe, and everything, which, as you know, is of course 42. You just need to figure out what the question is. And it may be as simple as, what, 6 times 7? But do they seem like they've gotten all the answers? Not in my experience of these spirits. I've interacted with things that I would identify as non-human entities that certainly seem to have a much broader perspective of reality, and even they do not seem to be so amazingly advanced that they know all the answers either. Maybe it's my inherent distrust of authority. Maybe it's the fact that if you classify me as left-hand path versus right-hand path, someone who is more inclined to follow their own will than to follow the will of a higher power, I'm more inclined to follow my own will at the end of the day. I like to find my own path. I don't like to be told how to find it. So maybe that's at the root of my issue with the idea of spirit guides. I know for some people they find it very comforting to think that there are guides and guardians that will help guide their steps, that will help show them the way. I want to find it for myself. Maybe that's why any of the spirits that work with me respect that. I can't say for sure. But at the end of the day, do I think that every single person is going to have their own personal guide? That's not been my experience. Can you reach out to something that is not harmful, that you can build a relationship with, that can help you understand what it's like on that side? Well, heck, I actually wrote a whole process for doing that in Walking the Twilight Path. So obviously I believe that that's possible. Maybe I'm getting hung up on the title. I may be getting hung up on the title and the fact that my first introduction to spirit guides was through a channeling group in Cleveland, the vast majority of whom seemed to be wacky people off in La La Land who'd opened their brains to the point where everything had fallen out, including any sense of objectivity and reason. So, leaves a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth to call it spirit guides. But at the same time, then I'm going to happily talk about the dead Celtic warrior who stands at the head of my bed and keeps whatever may harm me while I'm dreaming at bay. He's a very good friend. He's somebody that I would miss if he was gone. I think about him. I talk to him. That might seem a little strange, but I talk to my cat and my computer too. Thing is I do expect him to respond every now and then. The other side is more complicated, I think, than any one psychic can explain, that any one of us even can experience in one lifetime. There are a lot of different rules, and I think many of those rules are different from person to person. So, if you feel that you have a spirit guide, do not in any way, shape, or form take this little foray into my own belief system uh, as a negation of your experience. If you have a spirit guide, that is a beautiful thing. You have someone to help you step by step. If you don't have a spirit guide, you don't seem to have succeeded in being able to find one, don't think that you're being singled out, that you stink on the other side and none of the spirits want to deal with you. It may simply be that this is something for some people, and that there are other ways for other people to navigate their beliefs and to learn. Some of us learn better with a tutor. Some of us learn better by making mistakes, picking ourselves back up, and continuing to bull forward until we get it right. I'm kind of the latter. So, spirit guides, not sure what I think at the end of the day. I'll go with whatever you think. If you have one, that's very cool. If you think I have spirit guides because there's dead guys that follow me around and sometimes tell me to avoid dark alleys, I'll acknowledge that maybe we can call them spirit guides, but I just don't think of them as better than me at the end of the day. They're friends, and I take their advice just as seriously as I will take the advice of any other good friend. Take it under advisement, but really, at the end of the day, I want to see for myself.